Jim, is this a complicated case for jurors? Because we're talking about the murder of Susan Berman, but it is linked to the disappearance of Kathleen McCormick Durst. They almost have to find what happened. They have to determine what happened to Kathy, maybe in order to determine what happened to Susan Berman. It seems like a complicated case for them. What do you think?
Well, absolutely, but that does provide the underlying motive in that situation. And while people's memories fade, when you have events that are so critical in one's life, the loss of a sister, the loss of a friend, that's the type of thing that you're more likely to remember. So, yes, there's some more dots to be connected here. But when you connect those dots and then look at what the motive of Mr. Durst was, at least that allows the jury to reach the conclusion that perhaps he did kill his longtime companion.
Let's listen a little bit more to this witness who testified yesterday. She's the sister of Gilberta, who was a friend of Kathy. So, Mike, we're dealing with two competing narratives here, right? The one theory is that Robert Durst, all the pieces fit in place for him to murder Kathy Durst. Again, this is what we've seen before. They're in a fight. It happens right at that time. She disappears. On the other hand, which has been a theory, I guess, asserted by the defense or asserted by Durst, is that Kathy went missing when she went into Manhattan, not when she left not when she was in Westchester. And, the prosecution is saying that's why Susan Berman imitated Kathy Durst, called up the medical school, basically said that she wasn't there. So we're dealing with whether or not this is a murder versus whether or not this is a woman who just disappeared on her own or for what other reasons. They've been talking about cocaine use. What else was she involved in? Where are you settled with that?
It's just such an interesting case because it's got so much circumstantial evidence. There's nothing really direct here. It's very much circumstantial. And quite frankly, in many times, circumstantial evidence carries further with the jury because it allows the jury to become very interactive with their own life experience by saying, well, I've had similar situations. This seems to make sense. All these things together seem to be enough evidence to convict. And I think that's always a danger because we always think you need hard evidence to point to directly for a conviction. Sometimes that's where the doubt comes in because it's how did they arrive at that evidence and it's based on expertise. A lot of this, and you hear many of these lay witnesses are getting asked hypotheticals, which has me in shock of why they think something happened. And I think it's going to be a heavy influence on the jury.
Jim, something that I would imagine the jury would be thinking about since the Robert Durst history is coming into play is here's a guy who who killed Morris Black, was acquitted of that, chopped up his body. He's being accused of killing Susan Berman execution style, and now he's being implicated in the disappearance of his wife. If he really did this to Kathy, where he left no trace of a crime, she completely disappeared. Does that seem like the same guy that would have shot Susan Berman in the back of the head, execution style, and then mailed a cadaver letter to police? It seems like, couldn't the defense say this is the work of two different people?
Well, you have different situations, and it also shows how his history shows how manipulative he is. I mean, this is a guy who was able to live as a mute woman for a period of time. So look, this is not someone who is a serial killer who's motivated by he can't help his impulses. He's very calculated. So the fact that these crimes and the cover up for these crimes took different turns does not exonerate him in this instance, and it leads the jury to believe that he's someone who's capable of a lot of things. He's actually capable of chopping up a body and putting it in the water and then somehow being acquitted. So a jury has to look at it and say, we won't get fooled again. We want to really get into this guy and see whether or not he actually killed his longtime partner here.